Hey, this is Jane Rodriguez again, and I really wanted to use my new camera again, so I had to finish my reading of my blog entry anyway, which had to do with the occult fascination with Antarctica. And then I have a story to share from a person who's a listener, a reader, and watcher of Crypto Four Corner International, J.C. Johnson, myself, the blog, and my channel. He has become a friend, like I said, but he also has a story to share about his wife's Indonesian Bigfoot experience. So I'll be reading that soon too. But let me finish, within this same video. So first let me share the rest of my blog. So I went over the Piri Reis map, which, if you think about what that is, just right there, that should shatter your beliefs and your faith in the current system and establishment. What they tell you is you have to accept as real, and they teach us in school. It's like it is a conspiracy. It's not a theory. It's a conspiracy. Period. A theory would be where I'm speculating. Oh, is this a theory or not? No, it is obviously a theory. Or it's obviously just a plain old conspiracy fact if I can show you the historical documents that make it a friggin' conspiracy, okay? It's not a speculation, it's not an opinion, it is. So that's very annoying. That's just one way that people try to discredit what's really happening. I don't like not looking in the camera, but whatever. I've got two computers going on. Anyway, so this map was drawn up in the 1500s. And it was drawn up by an officer, a naval officer for the Imperial Army, I should say Navy, and it was an accurate map of the continent. The establishment again says that it was officially discovered by Russia hundreds of years later, but it depicts the continent as it really is, and it depicts it as not a frozen tundra. So I read about that. I read his letter, the actual letter. I have, if you go to my blog, you can see for yourself the map. I have a link. I have all of this stuff linked up. Right, so okay, let me pick this back up. So in light with all the mystery and strangeness, there is a whole galaxy of occult-related and hollow earth theory-related wonder that's attached to this Antarctica. There are so many deep occultic roots associated with the continent that I haven't yet touched on that it's hard to know where to start and where exactly to end. There is a lot of ins, a lot of outs. Like the Big Lebowski. A lot of ins, a lot of outs. To whittle a modern-day example that brought Antarctica into the world of geo-occultism and politics. I think geo-occultism is a brand new term, by the way. I'm going to talk about why Hitler was so fascinated with it and made so many expeditions and finally settled on a base there. This, of course, does not bear relevancy as to why leaders this very day are returning to the frigid land. But before I jump right into it, I want to remind you that mysticism and magic and the occult is not, as the establishment and most media would have you believe, two separate entities. Ever since the dawning of quantum mechanics, when Dr. Heisenberg came along with his uncertainty principle, another trailblazing particle physicist saw that photons and electrons could exist in two places at the same time. That's right, exist in two places at the same time. Modern day science has been catapulted into an arena that sounds more like metaphysics than it is science of your parents and grandparents. So that's science. My mom was just here and we were talking. We're like, well, where did humanity really fuck up? and I said, oh, I'll explain the hippies, because they, like, you know, they totally let their movement get hijacked with the drugs and everything. Their whole movement got hijacked by the CIA. Sorry, I hate to break it to you, but they think they're rebels. They're not. And she said, no, where it happened was, there's a name for the movement, but it was her mom, and her mom was born in the 1920s, so it was when the age of science really took off, that they felt that they had the answers for everything, and that they're God, and that like me, like if I disagree with the mainstream, their view, then I'm a tin-foil hat-wearing lunatic that has conspiracy theories, which, like I said, I don't deal with theories or speculation really when it comes to these things. Like, obviously, cryptozoology is a field where you're forced to speculate because the mainstream marginalizes you and won't divulge what they have collected, their data, so we're forced to do it. But like I said, so you know, how many times has science been working with religion itself hand in hand, and then put people to death for having their actual facts? How often does that happen? Just about every single time that there's a major freaking society. Fools! You guys don't, I mean, not you, but people just don't remember how history goes. Fucking look at it from a full scale, full picture. Sorry for swearing. So almost 100 years ago, I'm quoting another person's work here. Werner Heisenberg, Max Born und Erwin Schrödinger created a new field of physics, quantum mechanics. Objects of the quantum world, according to quantum theory, no longer move along a single well-defined path. Rather, they can simultaneously take different paths and end up at different places at the same time. It's called quantum superposition of different paths. Credit phys.org news 2015-1 atoms.html. It's all cited in my article. For my next example of occult magic making its way into modern science, let's visit the controversial CERN, the Large Hadron Particle Accelerator located in Switzerland. Looking for what the scientists call CERN. What the scientists are looking at CERN is called unknown unknowns, quote unquote. For instance, an extra dimension. Out of this door might come something, or we might send something through it, said Sergio Bertolucci, who is a director for research and scientific computing at CERN. Other scientists at CERN have spoken directly about the occult ties to the program, and the fact is that there are layers of ritual and magic associated with the goings-on at CERN. From the location itself, the ancient site of ritual sacrifice for Abaddon, Apollyon, it being shaped as a giant key, refer back to the quote Bertolucci made about bringing something in from another dimension, and also refer to the Bible, Book of Revelation, the keys to the bottomless pit. The significance in it being shaped like a key. See if I wouldn't get ahead of myself. I actually wrote that. In Revelation 9:11, their king is the angel from the bottomless pit. His name in Hebrew is Abaddon, and in Greek Apollyon, the destroyer. And did I mention that in front of the building at CERN, the entrance site, sits a large statue of the Hindu god Shiva, who is the goddess of destruction and rebirth. I'd like to point out that it was a life's work and dream for one Aleister Crowley to bring in entities from other dimensions. As an opposition to the Lord Creator, he was a predecessor and teacher to Madame Blavatsky, the founder of the Theosophic Society, who is the woman with the idea matrix which helped develop the Third Reich. That's right. The Third Reich is all about magic in opposition to God, Jehovah, Yahweh. So it's one part politics, one part occult, one part science. This is where you get your full-scale dominance of the human spirit and mind. This is not my opinion or speculation either. In fact, none of what I just said about CERN is either. This is the modern world we are living in, ladies and gentlemen. And that modern world is thus. Science and magic are merging, as it did eons ago, and it always will. And this is what's going on now, is an attempted revival of the golden age of yore. The ultimate end game being that the gods will once walk again with us and rule over us, and the super elite will be, for the lack of better terms, the leader monkeys for the rest of us. The Nephilim, the giants, the titans of yore are the real thing, and the elite know this and have known this for some time, and this is the root and the heart of the games of all the geopolitics that are going on. So when you get into magic, you're getting into these high-ranking demons that you think that you can like wrap around your little finger and like will do you some favors and teach you some things, and you know. But the reality is that they'll trick you. You have to be their slave, and then you get to go to hell. But you think in your little distorted brain that it's better to reign in hell than serve in heaven. It's twisted. Some people really like it though. I mean, they really want pure annihilation and destruction, even though it defies logic and reason. So, you know, these are heavy concepts. I understand that, but if you are a subscriber to my channel, then you like it. You like to think about these things, which is a credit to you as a person. That means you're strong. So to keep going forward, when you engage with other people in your life that don't want to think about these things, have no idea. Some people will. You just, you know, encourage people to start looking at what is the motive. And it all really does come down to a couple simple, pure things, good versus evil. So one of the greatest tricks Satan ever pulled on humanity is convincing them he doesn't exist. So to circle back around to the heart topic, being in Antarctica, let me give you a bolus of facts that support my claim. As you know, conventional history says that Russia discovered Antarctica despite all the evidence that it was discovered centuries prior. This is just something establishment does, cover up undeniable facts, proofs, evidence that oppose its paradigm. I already went over that. I mean, I actually wrote quite a bit more, and then I go into the Book of Enoch. So you know what? Maybe I'll do this in 3 installments since I got ADHD or something. I don't want to sit here because I gotta get ready for work. Oh shoot. Okay. Well, I have time to read Mike's story. So his wife's Indonesian Bigfoot stories. This occurred in Celebes, Indonesia, around 1970, give or take. I'm not sure of the exact year. Celebes is a horseshoe-shaped island near Borneo, and I'm sure I'm butchering. Her father recounted the story to her of what happened to him on a cross-country motorcycle trip when he was about 55. So to save time, he decided to go across the country instead of the highway. So he's cutting across the wilderness. All of a sudden, the bike felt like a huge load had been put on it, and he wouldn't go forward anymore. He got off the bike and saw a huge person standing there. He sat down and prayed as he assumed he was about to die, and the word person's in quotations. He could see its feet. Then he shut his eyes to pray. After a while, he opened his eyes and it was gone. I'm translating this from Indonesian. Her English is bad, so it's a chore to try and get the details, but I will summarize at the end. And some details may be lost to memory. Her father passed away 5 years ago, so we can't ask him anymore. My impression is that he referred to it as a person because he had no other way to describe him. He never saw the face, and he didn't describe the detail of what the legs and feet looked like, other than like it was huge. The face that he had was so close to it, but never saw the head, gives an idea of how huge it was. My friend Brenton Salmon uploaded a video about his recent encounter. He called me right after it happened to him, and just the energy in his voice and what happened. The thing was so big that when it put his hand into his tent, he couldn't see the freaking elbow, the joint. That's how big it was, and it was in, and it reached in, and the hand wrapped around his whole rib cage. I won't like spoil his video, but I mean, these things are friggin' huge. Now think about how can they exist in the physical world and never be spotted all the time, and they're that huge. Well, gee, they must be a little bit able to sneak over into another dimension. Alright, so the face So it would have required him to look up and see a face and he was too terrified to do that. Can't blame him. I would guess a minimum of 7.5 feet, but possibly much taller. Apparently this thing came up behind his bike and held onto the back to stop it. He didn't see it till he stopped and got off the bike. He had to just be several feet away or less at that point. No mentions of any odor or any sound, and it was at dusk, so it's like hard to see, and there's no lights in the jungle or on the jungle. Her father only told her this story once, and I think it was a precautionary tale. He wanted his family to know it was dangerous out there. He said the story petrified him, and that day was many years later. To that day, which was many years later, sorry. Second story. Grandpa's story, same island. Different part of the island, not sure on time, but early 1900s, somewhere possibly 1920s. Grandpa and some friends were hunting, large hunting party, 10 people maybe. They decided to explore a cave they found at the bottom of a ravine to look for bird droppings. They heard noises. Guano, he said, and question mark. They heard noises from inside and started running. They scrambled up the ravine, but one person fell back down. They threw a rope down to him to help him out, but he said he couldn't climb up as something was holding his foot. More noises like people scurrying around loud, marching kind of noises and sounds like many people, not just one or two. So they fled in fear and left that man, and he was never seen again. Grandfather told the story as a caution to the grandkids going into the jungle. And they apparently stumbled upon a bunch of, or a society of some kind of creature. No actual visual though. But what they heard terrified them so much. It was like 10 armed men, and they ran like helpless children and abandoned one of their own to die. So that reminds me of Celtic stories where people hear a whole, it's just like that, like in Ireland, with Tuatha De Danann, they hear a whole procession, and what it like in the legend goes, it's the queen of the Fae. They can hear the horses, they can hear so many footsteps, it's just so loud, it's just a train of people, but they can't see anybody because they are not deciding to let themselves be seen. And sometimes a person inadvertently does something to attract them. So be real careful when you're intentionally hearing a wood knock or something and then you answer back. It's bad news. Like you could be saying something to them that you don't want to never be seen again. So, alright, I covered a lot of bases and I'm using my new camera. So it looks like it's more high def to me. Anyway, have a good weekend and I'll talk to you later. Bye.